Well, good afternoon, Gareth.
Hi, Peter.
How are you today?
I'm good. I'm good despite the weather. It's good. Yeah.
Yes, it's a balmy 13 or 14 degrees, so we can't complain
Exactly.
too much. Can't complain too much. So Gareth, tell me a little about yourself and your organization, please.
Yeah, sure, Peter. So I'm Gareth Hagan. I'm the CEO of a company called OCO Global, Northern Ireland company, but with a global presence. So we're an advisory firm, Peter. So we're sort of consultants, I suppose, in common terms. But look, we help kind of both governments and companies actually around international growth. So what does that mean? It means working with the likes of SNI and countless others like them across the world to attract FDI, but also increasingly working with small and medium-sized companies to help them to grow internationally. And we do that because we've got sort of offices. I sometimes wonder whether we've too many offices, but we've offices kind of all over the world, Peter. Not just here in Belfast and in the UK, but in Dublin, in Europe, Frankfurt, Paris, Dubai, in the Middle East, Shanghai and Tokyo, in Asia, and in North America as well, and in New York. So we're for a firm of about sort of 150, 160 people, we're pretty well spread.
And how long have you been doing that for, Gareth? How long have you been involved in OCO?
Yeah, so the business, Peter, has been going for 21 years. We turned 20 last year, which was a significant milestone for the firm. And
Congratulations.
Yeah, well, exactly. And hopefully we're not showing our age too much. But for myself personally, Peter, I've been with the firm for about 7 years. I mean, I'm from here, as I'm sure you can tell from the accent, but I spent most of my career in London. And I came back about 10 years ago, was strategy director of one of the big banks here in Ireland, but had been involved, in a non-exec capacity at OCO, and then sort of came on board, as it were, sort of 7 years ago. And it's been a great ride so far.
What would you say have been your biggest learnings in business or life, or both, indeed?
God almighty, sort of existential type question. But it's funny, one of the things I used to do when I used to work in a big consulting firm in London, and I used to head up recruitment, which had me going around universities and sort of business schools across the world. And I always used to love coming back to Ireland, to the likes of Queen's and Trinity and UCD. And the advice that I used to give people, who were, I guess, interviewing for quite a prestigious consulting firm was, I always wanted them to back themselves. And I sometimes think, kind of maybe less so now, but 20, 25 years ago, I'm not sure that sort of, people in Ireland kind of back themselves enough, actually. And, when you're in a competitive market and, kind of we're in a global market, and we're competing, with kind of, everybody from, the biggest consulting firms to one-man bands who are very expert in what they do, but you have to back yourself, because if you don't, basically you can be kind of rest assured that, someone who's next to you is going to back themselves, and you're going to be one step further back. So it's something I've always sort of felt, basically, that what do you got to lose? You got to back yourself. You got to kind of put 100% in. You don't kind of have any regrets. And I think I would apply that to kind of both my business and my personal life, Peter.
And has there ever been like a mentor or anyone that's had an impact on your life?
Yeah, I've had a couple. I've had a couple now, and probably in different ways. I mean, I think about a mentor. When I worked with a firm called Boston Consulting Group in London, and there was a senior partner at the time who, just by coincidence, was a Northern Irish guy, basically, and he was a mentor, but it was a kind of tough love sort of mentor type relationship. And you know what? Actually, I still think back to those days, and actually that sort of tough love basically was exactly what I needed at the time, and it definitely had me sort of up my game. I think more recently, I had a boss when I was in banking, basically, who I think was a great mentor, actually, on the other side, where he was a great people person, and a hugely sort of respectful and a guy with a lot of integrity, and he just kind of taught me that, actually, you can be the smartest guy in the room and you can have the best ideas, but if you don't have the people kind of coming along with you, kind of what's the point, really? So I think, from both of those guys, I've probably got both ends of the sort of spectrum. One about kind of, kind of the tough love and challenging yourself and being the smartest guy or being the smartest girl, basically, and then kind of from the other side, basically, the realization that that's kind of not really enough,
No, it's a great balance, great balance. And do you have any favorite quotes or sayings? That's all that you'd like to share?
I do. I've got one actually that probably I overquote, and anybody who works with me would probably sort of agree with it. But there is something in it that I really like, and it's it's much better to ask for forgiveness than it is for permission. So I very much kind of encourage people to do that again, because and I trust people not to be kind of sort of irresponsible and sort of foolhardy basically. So within a sort of a kind of level of trust and sort of sensible parameters, I think basically kind of permission sort of kind of is always kind of trump by forgiveness.
Very good. And who's the first person that comes to mind when you hear the word success?
It's funny actually, because you might expect me to sort of kind of say a sort of business kind of person, and I did think about that before we spoke, Peter. I mean, actually, I'm originally, not that this is that relevant, but I'm actually originally from Derry, and I've always been sort of kind of hugely kind of sort of just impressed and definitely looked to someone like John Hume, I think, kind of kind of in the past, and I think there's a lot of reasons for that. I mean, I think whether it's business, politics, I think sort of courage is kind of is an important sort of kind of attribute. I think sticking with your conviction basically, but also sort of kind of staying the course and kind of having sort of the resilience basically, because there's always going to be knocks along the way, and it's always easy to give up. And I think not just John Hume himself, but many other people, I think basically of that generation basically, I think are an example to us, kind of to us all, and as someone who's lived away for much of my professional career and come back to a very different kind of Northern Ireland, a very different Belfast, I think that we sort of all owe them a kind of huge debt of gratitude.
Yes, that's a great example. Yeah, he was a really, suppose, pivotal in the whole peace process as it was then. So what have you learned about yourself during your journey, Gareth?
Yeah, I mean, I talked about the sort of the backing yourself, Peter, early on in the conversation, and I've tried to sort of live that creed myself, and I think what I've learned about myself basically is that often we don't give ourselves enough credit for kind of what we're capable of, and I think that putting yourself in difficult, challenging situations, it does take a little bit of kind of courage, but by heck, basically, when you come out the other side of it, and when you realize basically what you're able to achieve, yourself basically, and with your team, it's amazing, really, So it's just kind of taught me to sort of kind of to keep doing that, because sort of the next one will be more difficult than the last one, but if you get through it, then basically kind of then you go on to the next one again, which is kind of different. So I think it's really that basically, and just to not let yourself kind of be sort of kind of too concerned about kind of perceptions about can you do this, can someone else do it better, just give it a go.
And what would you say is the biggest challenge that you're currently facing in your role with OCO Global?
Yeah, I mean, our biggest challenge at the moment, Peter, is scaling. So we're a business that fortunately is growing pretty significantly, and actually finding the people and kind of attracting the people to kind of help us to kind of maintain and accelerate that growth is a big challenge. I mean, it's a different market, kind of labor market basically to kind of what we've probably had in the last kind of kind of 10 years. Kind of COVID has changed that. Kind of what's going on kind of in terms of global economics at the moment has changed that. I think people are looking for different things from careers. Basically kind of what I sort of kind of wanted when I was in my mid-20s, I think is different to kind of what someone in their mid-20s wants today. And I think kind of having to adjust and having to be kind of relevant in terms of kind of attracting that kind of kind of those right types of people and that kind of right type of talent. And candidly, even in the local market here, Peter, in terms of the sort of consulting business that we're in, if I look at the very big consulting firms, the big four as they're called, I mean, there's probably collectively 10,000 people more in those firms now than there might have even been 10 years ago, and so therefore the competition for that talent is ever greater, and so we've got to offer something different that makes kind of that person kind of want to come and work for OCO Global, which clearly I think they should, and I think we've got a great kind of offer for them, but it's a challenge for sure.
And what advice would you give to anyone thinking of going into business today?
I think just ask yourself the question about, kind of what are you going to do that's different to what's there at the moment, And I think that, whether you're sort of, designing a product, whether you're delivering a service, basically kind of, think about the customer and think about, well, why basically would kind of what I'm offering be different to kind of what they're doing today. And I think at OCO, we think about that kind of a lot. I certainly do. And I think I'm clear in my mind as to why we're different to, for example, bigger sort of consulting firms, whether it's expertise, whether it's the extra mile that we kind of invariably go because we feel we need to, because we're a smaller firm, basically kind of, our flexibility around commercial arrangements, whatever it happens to be, but whatever your business is, find and basically be clear on what it is that makes you different. Because, I think the reality is that if you don't know that, you probably don't know the business, So I think it's worth thinking about that up front.
And if it were possible and you could go back and give some advice to your, and I'm sure it wasn't that long ago, but if you could go back and give advice to your 18-year-old self, what sort of advice would you be dishing out?
Great question. It's a great question. Maybe I should have, trained harder at football, and maybe I might have played for Man United, or maybe even Derry City. Basically, that would have been good enough. But no, look, I think one of the things I struggled with when I was sort of that 18-year-old sort of self was that sort of idea around, maybe trying to decide what or maybe being told that you need to decide pretty early what you want to be, And I actually studied engineering at university. I look back on it, it was just the wrong thing for me to study, And I did okay basically, but the turning point for me was I actually got an internship before my last year at university at Procter & Gamble, and big, very prestigious firm. But I ended up in sort of an engineering type job, and got to the end of the internship, and luckily it done quite well basically. But I was given a job offer. But somebody said to me that they said, Gareth, I think actually P&G is the right company for you, but I don't think this is the right part of P&G for you. And actually, you're probably a bit more commercially oriented and all the rest of it. So I suppose, my sort of advice basically is, don't get sort of too hung up, and don't, sort of, try and land on something too early. I mean, I think variety is kind of great. I think breadth of experience is great. I think when you're in your sort of, 20s, at least, basically, you should suck up and kind of avail of as many experiences as you can. Of course, at some stage, got to, sort of focus on, kind of a smaller number of things that you want to do. But I think basically that kind of, getting lots of experiences and having a breadth of experience is fundamental in terms of you being successful in business. And it's certainly kind of the way that my kind of career has evolved. Basically, I've been lucky enough to do lots of things, and it just means, I suppose, that when we're talking to clients and you have either maybe worked in the industry or got an experience of kind of something that was kind of sits in and around that just brings a different perspective to what we're trying to do.
That's brilliant. And if somebody wanted to reach out and get in touch, or you've resonated with something, or they're interested in OCO Global, then what would be the best way for them to go about that, Gareth?
Well, hopefully they'll find us on our social media channels, but there's an acid test right there. But no, I mean, generally, Peter, I mean, we're a global firm, but we're a Northern Ireland firm, So kind of I'm here, kind of most of the time when I'm not in some other part of the world. So like reaching out, to me or to anybody in the firm via sort of LinkedIn, kind of via other kind of channels. We've just redone our website basically, so hopefully that gives a good mechanism for people to contact us as well. But no, look, we're very. I think we were chatting a bit before the interview, Peter. We're a global business. I think being a local business and being sort of visible and strong in our home market is important. So look, I've been very lucky to work with some of the sort of best and brightest sort of firms in Northern Ireland in the last sort of 4 or 5 years. And basically, I think for Northern Ireland as an economy, when you're not even 2 million people, the only way you're going to grow is by looking outwards, And so I think for companies out there who are looking at international markets and either have a view or basically want to make a start, we're certainly always open to those types of conversations.
That's brilliant, and it's great to hear about a local company that's having a global footprint. So, Gareth Hagan of OCO Global, thank you very much indeed for your time and sharing your story. It's been a really interesting chat. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks.